Number 1, Texas. Number 3, Ohio State this Saturday. Joining us on today's show to preview the game, Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes. We'll dive in next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, without further ado, a very special episode for a very special game. Joining us today to talk all things Texas, Ohio State, it's Locked On Buckeyes host Jay Stevens. Jay, thanks so much for the time, my man. How are you today?
BK, I'm doing well, man. Happy to be here with you and looking forward to this game. A top 3 showdown. Number 1, Texas versus number 3, Ohio State. It's in the shoe, and Ohio State fans are hoping the last time these two teams played that this outcome is a little bit different than the last one, where Texas, I believe, walked out of the shoe with the win that night. It was about 20 years ago now. That's crazy.
Yeah. 20 years ago, Texas went into the shoe, a top 5 matchup, and the Longhorns got a road win there. Obviously, the following year in 2006, Ohio State came into Texas in a 1-2 game, and the Buckeyes got the win. So, you're talking about Ohio State hoping to reverse their fortunes from 20 years ago. Texas fans are trying to reverse what happened 8 months ago at the Cotton Bowl in Arlington. I guess I should start by being nice and congratulating you and your team on a national championship. That's why that one hurt Texas fans so bad. I think most people kind of thought the winner of the Cotton Bowl was going to beat Notre Dame and win it all. Obviously, the Buckeyes made the big plays late and ended up winning the national championship. So a delayed congratulations to you and your squad for getting the job done.
Man, that was a fun game to watch, not only beating Texas in the Cotton Bowl, but also, well, I can't say fun the entire time because Notre Dame did come back, but the final outcome was pretty sweet to see Ryan Day and the players that have worked so hard just to get to that moment, be at the top of the mountaintop and celebrate. And seeing Ryan Day do the media circuit, going around the different national shows and seeing the players, how they celebrated, and then the national championship celebration. It was a great ending to a 4 or 5 year run for some of those guys that had some struggles along the way. Lost to Georgia a few years prior to that. And then, of course, the 2 losses a year ago, the biggest one being the loss to Michigan. Then they turn around after that loss and find a way to go on a phenomenal 4-game run in the CFP to win the national championship. That was a fun run to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's dive into this Saturday's game. And I want to start with the head coach, right? A lot of new on both sides in this matchup, but obviously the head coaching matchup remains the same. Ryan Day's been at Ohio State for 7 years, and he's only lost a total of 10 games. He's 70-10, and despite all the success, there were a number of Buckeye fans seemingly calling for Ryan Day's job after that Michigan loss right before the start of the college football playoff. Just curious where Buckeyes fans are at with him now. Like, did the national title calm everyone's nerves, or is there still maybe a portion of the fan base that isn't completely bought in on Ryan Day as the guy?
I think most people are bought in on Ryan Day to be the guy. The only issue people have with Ryan Day, and I am one of those people, it's the Michigan hang-up. It doesn't make any sense why Ryan Day and Ohio State have lost 4 games in a row. Even the worst Michigan team during that stretch was very, very physical and caused some issues for Ohio State, where they walked out of that game with a 13-10 win on the road for the Wolverines that day. So, I mean, that's probably the only hiccup. He's fixed some things with the defense, fixed some things with the offense to where both sides of the ball are some of the best in the country. And so he's done a lot of things well, got the national championship. People don't really complain that he hasn't won the conference since 2020. They just care about the 4-game losing streak to the biggest rival.
Yeah, makes sense. And last year's game against Michigan didn't make a lot of sense, but obviously Ohio State turned it on at the right time. And you said it, that 4-game run they went on in the playoff, incredibly impressive. So Ryan Day's the same, but new coordinators, right? Brian Hartline, who's been there, he's called plays there before. He takes over the offense for Chip Kelly. Matt Patricia comes in to take over the defense. I guess your thoughts on both of those guys and what changes, if any, Texas fans and Ohio State fans should expect from the new coordinators.
I think both fan bases should expect the defense to, I want to say, pick up where it left off last year, because that was a very special unit. But I don't think it's going to be a major drop off with Matt Patricia coming in, replacing Jim Knowles. It may be more creative, and it may be the same 11 or 12, 13 guys playing consistently. But you're finding out that Patricia is going to use some 3-down fronts, some 4-down fronts. I don't think you're going to see the 5-man front like it was discussed last year before the season, but you're going to find Patricia be very, very creative with the formula and the base that Ryan Day has already had there with the defense. Offensively, it's tricky because while Hartline did call plays maybe for a half or a full game a couple of years ago, it's completely different when you're doing it not just against Texas, but against Grambling State and Ohio and Washington in the entire year. He does have the safety net of Ryan Day. So offensively, you have a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive play caller who's doing it for the first time at the full-time level for the first time. But then you also have a new starting quarterback. You have new running backs. You have new offensive line starters. You're also going to have some new guys on the outside and weapons. So I think the skill positions are going to be fine. When you have a new offensive play caller and a redshirt freshman who's a starting quarterback, I think Ohio State fans are comfortable with Hartline, but there's a level of anxiety that's rising up, as it should be, because it's hard to know what this is going to be. Is it going to be Hartline picking it up and running like he knows what he's doing and not having any issues? Or is it Ryan Day trying to pick up the pieces after Hartline struggles to get into a flow?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel a little ridiculous asking this because we're talking about the first game of the year, but is there any sort of leash maybe on Brian Hartline? Like, if Ohio State's offense is really struggling in the first half, let's say Texas is up 10-3 or something at the break and Julian Sayin looks bad and the run game's not going, is there a possibility that Ryan Day would consider taking over play calling that early?
Yeah, I don't think he'll have to wait till the first half for that to happen to go into the locker room and say, hey, you're not getting the job done. I would see it happening earlier than that, second quarter, midway through the second. If the offense is very, very clunky, I think you're going to find Ryan Day trying to give Hartline as much of a have the leash be a little bit longer than some may think it should be, but Day has a final say so. Ryan Day said earlier this week that he has a final say so with the play calling, and there is a veto power that he has, but with him having the final say, he doesn't want to jump in right away and just take over first series and say, Hartline, you ain't got it. I know we got this script. We put it together. We're very organized in our preparation for this game. But, man, this ain't working, man. The script that we even put together, it's just not flowing correctly because Day wants Hartline to have the trust that he has done a pretty good job to earn over the past few years with Day. But I do believe Day having the final say and having the veto power is big and needed, not just in this game against Texas, but in the future too. I mean, Buckeye fans remember 2015 where there were two co-offensive coordinators and the offensive flow wasn't well. Urban Meyer at times in certain games will take over play calling, but there was some confusion. There was some infighting, and I believe that was a big reason why 2015 ended the way that it did. I'm not going to say Ohio State is going to have a year in this year like it did in 2015, but I do think Urban Meyer and Day kind of worked with the play calling earlier, but Day and Hartline with their good connection is going to help the Buckeyes offense be good early in this game. I'm not saying it's going to be scoring 3 or 4 touchdowns in the first half. Don't get me wrong, but I do think they will find a way to get into a rhythm at some point in the first half.
Now, you brought up the coaches, and you also brought up Julian Sayin a moment ago. I want to ask you about him, and then I'm going to ask you about Arch Manning in a moment, but we'll start with Ohio State's new quarterback, former number 1 QB in America, transferred in from Alabama after Nick Saban retired. Quarterback competition for a while. Last week, Ryan Day made the announcement that Sayin was going to be the guy. How's Julian Sayin been looking during camp, and what are some realistic expectations for him in his first career start?
He's looked pretty good for a guy who is in his second year in college. Him getting a full year with Ryan Day was very huge because let's say that he was at Alabama last year and then he decided to transfer after one full year in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if he wins the job, to be honest with you. I don't know if Ryan Day would hand the reins over to even a talented quarterback like that. Let's say he didn't play that much. I don't know if Ryan Day is like, yeah, you're ready. He is the more gifted passer and he is the more talented quarterback. And so that's a big reason why Ryan Day won him out of high school and then was able to get him when he transferred after Nick Saban retired. I do think for Saturday, it's going to be interesting because everyone's talking about Arch Manning, and Julian Sayin as well. I can't get over the talent that Texas has and what happened last year when these two teams played and how with some different things going on with the Buckeyes offensive line that it might be that some guys up front for Texas find ways to create havoc and to penetrate the Buckeyes offensive line, which disrupts the rhythm and the flow for Sayin on Saturday. And so I think for Sayin, if the pocket is clean and he's able to orchestrate and move around and not have to worry about a blitzer or a DN coming at him, I think he'll be able to get into a flow. But I have my own worries about the Buckeyes offensive line and a unit that is going to start the year stronger than normal. I do wonder if they'll be able to hold up the front four and the talent really in the front for Texas for the entire 4 quarters of the game.
Yeah, that'll be a big matchup to watch. All right, we'll keep diving into other matchups. I want to get your thoughts on Arch Manning and, of course, a prediction for the game before we get out of here as well. Jay Stevens from Lock On Buckeyes joining us right now. We'll be back with more Texas-Ohio State conversation here in a moment on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. It can be tough to keep track of everything. And when you don't have the full picture, that's when you end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money exists. This is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together into one clean, easy-to-use interface right there on your phone or your laptop. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you because they do all of the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without having to ever touch a spreadsheet. It's so easy to use. Again, everything is right there in one place. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get half off your first year. Again, 50% off your first year from our friends at monarchmoney.com. All you have to do is use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. And we're also brought to you by our friends at Open Phone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, if you were waiting on hold for 20 minutes, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. If you juggle 2 phones just to stay on top of everything, if you've got a whole team of people and it's hard to keep track of who's taking what call, Open Phone is for you. They've got a shared inbox so everybody always knows what's going on. They've got an AI agent to handle your after-hours calls so you don't have to be up 24/7, 365. This is a game changer. See why more than 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. Right now, they're offering Locked On customers 20% off your first 6 months. Just head over to openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes joining us today to preview Saturday's top 3 tilt between Texas and Ohio State. So I asked you about Julian Sayin a moment ago. Now I want to get your thoughts on Arch Manning. I mean, he's the most talked about player in college football, and he's only started 2 games. It feels like there's some Arch Manning fatigue around the country right now. I want to get your thoughts on, what you think of Arch Manning and how do you think Ohio State's defense plans to attack Arch and this Longhorn offense here in a couple of days?
I think Arch is going to be fine. I'm not going to say he's going to win the Heisman this year or that he's going to throw for 450 and 5 touchdowns on Saturday. I think for the entire season, Arch is going to be fine. I remember when I watched Arch Manning either his freshman or sophomore year in high school, and I was just on YouTube. I got bored one day, and I was like, "Hey, let me look up this Arch Manning kid." I know I'm a big Peyton Manning guy, so I know that the whole family connection, things like that. And so I was thinking, is he as special as they say? And early in Arch's high school career, I was like, "Oh, this kid has it." I also was reminded, like, Cooper, his dad was the most athletic of Archie's kids, and so I wasn't shocked with how athletic Arch was in high school. Nor was I shocked that a year ago they kind of brought him in to be a backup and kind of do some different things creatively with his legs behind Quinn Ewers. I think he'll be fine in the long run. The one thing that I think is going to hurt Arch Manning this weekend is 4 new starters on the offensive line for Texas.
Yeah.
I think the O-line for Texas will be fine throughout the season. Early on, while Ohio State's defensive front, the front four, lost everybody to the NFL, Ohio State is moving some things around and shifting some things to where they have brought a linebacker to play on the edge in CJ Hicks that I do believe is going to be a monster off the edge. And I wish he would have had more time on the edge than being a linebacker for his first 3 years and his final year of eligibility. Oh, let's play him in the best spot that he would be playing at in the NFL. I think Ohio State's defense is going to find a way to get pressure on Arch Manning, which will rattle him early. It may not rattle him the entire game, but I do believe he will be rattled early. And if they find a way to pop him, I mean, they got Nico Iamaleava twice a year ago and cracked his helmet 2 times. I know Arch got popped in the Cotton Bowl last year. If they get a big hit on him, a clean big hit, I'm not talking about one of them targeting things where guys potentially get thrown out the game or get a 15-yard penalty. If they get a clean hit on Arch, that could derail a young quarterback in a game like this of this magnitude on the road. And so I think Arch will be fine in the long run in this game. I do expect some early struggles because Ohio State's defense, along with Matt Patricia leading it, is going to try to find a way to not just get some pressure on Arch, but to disrupt the mentals and the confidence of a lot of new starters on the Longhorns offensive line.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You know, Arch Manning told the media down here a couple of weeks ago that he talks to his grandpa, Archie, all the time. And he said Archie always ends the calls by saying, "Get down or get out of bounds."
Yeah.
Now, Archie's in his old age. He's hobbling around a little bit. He obviously took a lot of hits during his college and NFL career, and he is trying to preach that message to Arch Manning, like, get down or get out of bounds. Don't take a bunch of hits, especially from a defense as good as Ohio State's. And I want to follow up right there, Jay. I mean, it's insane how many players left from both of these teams. And it's also kind of insane that both of these teams are opening up the year, top 2 in the coaches poll, top 3 in the AP poll. 14 Buckeyes were drafted, 12 Longhorns were drafted. Steve Sarkisian said earlier this week, 32 players who played in this game in January are currently on NFL rosters, which is just insane. But you talked about it, that Buckeye defense, the best in the country last year, bar none. 4 D linemen are gone. Now, Cody Simon, the leading tackler, is gone. Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom in the second. Like, there are so many guys leaving. I know Caleb Downs is back. I know Sonny Styles is back. But what are the expectations for the Buckeyes defense, new coordinator, and a bunch of new personnel here in 2025?
I want to go back to a conversation I had earlier and a little comment I made about the Buckeyes defense not really going to be falling off, having a big-time drastic fall off this year. You mentioned a lot of those guys. D-line, gone. Cody Simon, gone. Burke's loss isn't as bad as I think it is because he fell off the past couple of years, and if he would have left after his 3rd year, he probably would have been drafted higher, maybe a 3rd-round pick. With what happened with him last year, I think Ohio State's defense will be stronger with Jermaine Matthews Jr. being a full-time starter than Burke was last year, because there were times last year Burke's confidence wasn't there, and he wasn't able to regain it throughout the season. I do think the Buckeyes defense in this game is going to have different looks because Sawyer and Tuimoloau a year ago, really good college guys off the edge. But that body type isn't the same as – now, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. is tall, is lengthy, has a long wingspan, but he's not Tuimoloau or Sawyer, not with the experience he's played or the type of player. CJ Hicks on the other side, he has different traits than both Sawyer and Tuimoloau. Caden Curry and Bo Atkinson, the transfer from North Carolina, Atkinson is more like a Sawyer or Tuimoloau in body type and the way that he plays, but even he does some things a little bit different. And so I don't think when it comes to the defensive front off the edge, it's going to be the same that it has been the past 3 years, because Sawyer and Tuimoloau were really, really good. They were experienced, but they were specific players. Ohio State has different creativity and different variety of players this year off the edge, which is going to be very big in this game. The only hiccup that I really find with the Buckeyes defense this year is on the interior of the D-line at D-tackle, because Ohio State is still trying to figure out the depth at that position. Ryan Day says they feel comfortable playing 5 guys at that role, one of them being a youngster in Jarquez Carter, which I didn't expect him to be in the mix to play in this type of matchup in week 1. But Ryan Day knows greatness, and he knows star talent when he sees it, and he sees something special in Jarquez Carter. So I think the defense will be fine. It won't have a major drop-off, but I do think the different styles and types of players that they have will be fun to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, last question in this segment, Jay, and you may have just answered it. I was going to ask about the biggest weakness for Ohio State. It's hard to find one on either of these teams because of all of the talent and the way these schools recruit and develop year in and year out. Is the biggest weakness the interior of the defensive line, or where else would you go for that question?
So it's on defense. I'll throw an extra one in there on purpose just because I want to throw this in too. The easiest answer for the weakest part of the defense, interior of the D-line or nickel corner. Lorenzo Styles Jr., Sonny Styles' brother, is expected to start at nickel corner on Saturday. He was a former Notre Dame receiver, transferred to Ohio State to play defense. Hasn't really been talked about a lot, and it may be less is more. Like, we don't have to worry about him. He's reliable, so why bring him up? Or it may be he's going to start, but we already have a backup plan here, but we don't want to talk about either one of those things. I think Lorenzo is going to be fine, but also that's a major wild card because he played a lot last year in the dime package. He wasn't on a lot in Ohio State's base 4-2-5 set. Interior of the D-line, I think it's also going to be fine. I just think that that's been talked about a whole lot more, so that's going to get more attention. A major wild card for Ohio State is Julian Sayin. As talented as he is, He's maybe 6'1", maybe 205 pounds. That's not big. That's not tall. And that's not normally what Ohio State has as a starting quarterback. Then you add in, he barely played a year ago. He is walking into a game with a defense that's trying to get their lick back after what happened last year. He is a major, major wild card. To me, he's a bigger wild card, or just as big as of a wild card as Heartline calling plays. That connection between OC and play caller and the quarterback, that can make or break this game on this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes joining us here. We've got one segment left. We'll get Jay's keys to the game and, of course, a prediction before we wrap things up here on Locked On Longhorns. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Week 1 of the college football season starts tomorrow. The NFL starts 1 week from tomorrow. Whether you've got your eyes on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. And how about this max discount? The opening game in the NFL, the Cowboys at the Eagles, Dak Prescott over under 0.5 passing yards. That's right. You can get that max discount from our friends at Prize Picks. That's easy money, right? Who are you most excited to watch this upcoming season? Love Prize Picks. Been using it for years. So much fun. They offer so many ways to play to spice up your football season. This is the best. Download the Prize Picks apps today and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's that simple. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege on the Prize Picks app, and you're going to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Oh, and we're also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Yeah, football season is basically here. Week 1 in college football starts tomorrow. The NFL is right around the corner. There's no better time of the year to be a sports fan, and there's no better time than right now to go find our friends at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. You can place all of your futures bets in the NFL. You can get your picks in for week 1 of the college football season. Games tomorrow, games Saturday, games Sunday, games Monday. It is nonstop football action. So if you're ready to make your bold season-long predictions, you could do that. If you just want to get in on the week 1 action, you can do that. More ways to win with our friends at FanDuel than ever before. So head over to the FanDuel app today or check out their website, FanDuel.com, and start planning your bets today. The season is going to be a fun one. It's FanDuel. Play your game. All right, final segment, our Texas-Ohio State preview with Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes. This has been a lot of fun. We could really talk about this game for like 5 hours. I mean, there were so many compelling storylines. It's number 1 versus number 3, 2 blue bloods. Obviously, the rematch from the CFP semifinal. Arch Manning, Julian Sayin this, that, and the other. When it comes down to it, though, Jay, and the ball is kicked Saturday, big noon. I know you Buckeye fans love that. Give me 2 to 3 keys. 2 to 3 keys to the game. We'll do it from your standpoint. So 2 to 3 keys for an Ohio State victory Saturday afternoon.
It starts with getting pressure on Arch Manning and disrupting the offensive flow that the offensive line is trying to create. Ohio State can't go into this game and not be aggressive and not allow the firepower that Sonny Styles and Arvo Reese are going to have at the linebacker spot to not be a reason that Arch isn't comfortable. Then you're going to have guys coming off the edge and on the interior. The best thing for me, honestly, is for the pressure to come up the middle rather than off the edge. I do think you're going to get pressure off the edge, but if you're able to collapse the pocket and push that thing back into Arch's face, that's the way that you're going to be able to win this game. So definitely, I call it tear up the trenches. The second one to me is find a way to get into an offensive rhythm early. You have a young quarterback with a young offensive play caller, not young in tenure of coaching, but just young in experience of being an offensive play caller. Find a way for those two to get into an offensive rhythm. You're going to get Hartline to gain confidence, Sayin is going to gain confidence, and Ryan Day is going to gain confidence too, as far as, hey, I know this look. They did it a year ago. I just watched the film again. How about we try this? And he's not only going to have confidence that that's the right call, but also confidence that his team can make that happen. So you got to tear up the trenches. You have to absolutely get into an offensive rhythm early, but also set the tone on the ground. Because with Ohio State's offensive line, it's going to be a lot stronger throughout the season, especially early in the year. You're going to have a returning starting center in Carson Hinsman, who replaced McLaughlin when he got hurt last year. You have Montgomery and Shabola and Serveld once again. And I think those 4 guys are going to be very, very solid and strong as far as getting James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson into a flow and to set the tone on the ground. Because if they can't run the ball and they're struggling to move the ball, then Texas can find ways to slow down the Buckeyes passing attack and to disrupt Jeremiah Smith. And maybe Jeremiah Smith doesn't have 8 or 10 catches like some say he can, because Ohio State can't run the ball. And Texas is able to put a whole lot of resources on number 4 the entire game. So to me, those are the quick ones. I think Ohio State has an opportunity to do all those things, but they definitely have to do those to beat Texas.
All right, Jay, 60 seconds. Last question here. How about a prediction? The Buckeyes, I think, opened up as a 3-point favorite, according to our friends at FanDuel. Now I'm seeing 1.5 to 2. The line's been going down in favor of Texas. Give me a prediction. Who wins and what's the final score this weekend?
I was hoping that this was going to be glossed over and that you would forget to ask me this question, because I know Ohio State fans are not going to like what I'm about to say. I think Texas wins 20-17. I have been on this train all summer, and I know Ryan Day is undefeated in season openers. I also understand that Ryan Day doesn't really lose to teams that he's favored to beat. Now, outside of Michigan, you got the Oregon game a couple years ago where Ohio State was favored, and then they lost in a non-conference slate. But most of the time in non-conference early season big boy matchups, Ryan Day finds a way to win. I mentioned something in my keys to victory that is making me a little bit nervous, and I was almost ready to go ahead and say Ohio State. But Hartline calling plays, and Sayin leading the offense against this Texas defense, that secondary is scary. For the Longhorns secondary that did some good things against Jeremiah Smith a year ago, with an experienced quarterback, they can do some similar things to not just Jeremiah Smith, but they can put a lot of resources to other receivers as well and muddy up the picture that Julian Sayin sees while he is leading the Buckeyes offense on Saturday. So Ohio State fans will hate that. I saw your reaction when I said it, but I think Texas wins 20-17. They're the number one team in the country for a reason. I'm very glad that it's Texas over Penn State because I have my own issues with people saying Penn State is their favorite to win the national championship because Penn State has a lot of talent. They haven't put it all together ever. They never have. So why do you believe that all of a sudden now, because they're the most experienced team, that they're going to win the national championship? So I have issues with that. I understand Texas being one. I also understand why the line is starting to move in the Longhorns' favor. 20-17, probably longer than 60 seconds, but I got to hide now because Buckeye fans are going to hate me.
Oh, man, I thought we were going to have to spend 10 minutes going back and forth arguing about who's going to win, but you're on my side. You're on the right side, Jay. I love that. Hey, if it's any consolation, I did pick the Buckeyes to beat Texas back in January, so maybe that'll help your fans like me a little bit more. I don't know. Probably not. That's probably not how this is going to work.
Who do you have in this game? Who do you have
winning on Saturday? I got Texas, 23-21. Close game. Okay. In 2005, it was 25-22. That was the final. I got a score right around there. I think it's a close one, but I'm going to side with Arch over Julian Sayin. I think Texas makes that one extra play that they couldn't make in January. I think the Longhorns reverse course and find a win. This was fun, Jay. Thanks so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate your time.
No problem. I enjoyed it, man. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number one, thank you. Number two, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And special thanks to Jay Stevens for joining us today. Y'all be sure to check out Locked On Buckeyes and subscribe over there as well. Really do appreciate y'all's support of the entire Locked On network, and especially right here on Locked On Longhorns. On tomorrow's show, more Texas Ohio State conversation, more sound from the coaches, the players, as we continue our preview all week long, just 3 days away from kickoff. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.